Hello dear students, welcome to NSM-LEARNING. In this series we are discussing Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats, and today we are going to discuss the seventh stanza of the poem. The stanza begins, Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generation tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperors and clowns. Perhaps the self same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when sick for home. She stood in tears amid the alien corn, the same that oft-time hath charmed magic casement, opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. So here we see in this stanza, the poet gives emphasis to the immortality of the bird's song. Of course, Keats here does not indicate any particular bird or that particular nightingale whose song he was listening to. Rather, he gives an indication to the entire species of the nightingale. The bird which is singing right now, of course this bird will die one day. It cannot sing permanently because it is a bird of flesh and blood and it is a mortal one. But spiritually he meant the entire species, entire kind of the nightingale, the whole generation of the nightingale. Today this bird is singing and tomorrow it will die. Then another nightingale of its kind will then sing and give pleasure to the listener. So the song of the nightingale is a permanent one. It is an immortal one. So he says that I am listening this very song this night, and the same song was probably heard in ancient times when there was the story of Ruth. So let me elaborate line by line. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generation tread thee down. Thou wast not born for death, O nightingale, you are not born to die. You, though your physical body will die, another nightingale will continue your song, and thus you will remain immortal through the song of your next generation. So, by this line, thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generation tread thee down. The poet wanted to mean the immortal quality, the permanence, immortality of the song of the nightingale. No hungry generation tread thee down. No power loving people, no power monger. The people who kill others in order to gain power. Such power loving people, power mongers, can never treat thee, can never step over you. They cannot abolish you, because if they can kill one nightingale, then the rest of the nightingales will continue the same song. Thus nightingale will remain ever immortal. So the poet in the previous stanza also said that he will continue your song and my ears will be useless, insensitive to your song, and the function of my ear will stop and they will be not more than the clad of earth, a sod. So here again we see he is giving the emphasis of the immortal quality, everlastingness of the song of the bird called nightingale. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generation tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperors and clowns. The voice which I am listening to this very night while I am in your happy world of the nightingale. The same song that I am listening now probably This very song was heard in old days, in ancient days, ancient time, primitive ages, when it was the old time, years ago or thousands of years ago, then your song was probably heard. And he says, the song I am hearing this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. So by emperors means by, it was heard by the rulers, and by the clown, by the common man, by the people of lower class who work in palace in order to entertain the king and the members, councillors. So the same song was probably heard in ancient times, and it was not exclusively for the rich people, for the rulers. Rather, every class, every people could hear your song, and thus they was soothed from your sweet song when they were in some kind of excitement or in a crisis. So he says, the voice I am hearing this passing night was heard in ancient times by emperors and clown. Perhaps the same song, same self song that hath found a path through the sad heart of Ruth, when sick for home she stood in tears amid the alien corn. So here we see a reference from Bible. The story of Ruth, it was found in the Old Testament of Bible. Ruth was a woman, a Moabitess, a lady from Moab, the country known as Moab. Alright, so she was a lady. There was a sad story related to her life. The story was something like that. She lost her husband in a premature age, and while she was working in the barley field, though she was sick for home, she had an attraction to return to her homeland, that is to her mother. Still, she did not return. She lost her husband, but the sincere love and respect for her mother-in-law, known as Naomi, she had a very, very sincere connection, a very, very close connection with Ruth. So the her sympathy for her mother-in-law also lost her husband untimely, and she lost her two sons. So she was also in a pool of suffering, pool of pain. And Ruth was very much sympathetic to her mother-in-law. So while she was working in the barley field, she thought of her lone mother-in-law, painful mother-in-law, and that very thought, that very sympathy to her mother-in-law prevented her from returning to her mainland, that is probably Bethlehem. So while she was walking with a tearful eyes in the barley field, then she had a heavy heart, painful heart. Still, the sweet song of the nightingale, it had such soothing effect that it gave her consolation while she was working in the barley field under the scorching heat of sun with tearful eyes. So the heavy and the painful heart of Ruth was also made soothed by the sweet song of the nightingale. So it was the story of old days, ancient times. So the poet actually wanted to mean your song was probably present there when there was the story of Ruth, when Ruth was working in the barley field. So the poet says that perhaps the self same song that had that has found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when sick for home. She stood in tear amid the alien corn. The same that oft times hath charmed magic casement, opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairylands forlorn. Another story is related here, and that is in a fairyland, in a lonely place, there a lady was captivated in a room because she was separated from her lover and she was imprisoned in a room. So while she was leading a painful life in a captivated state, in an imprisoned state, in a fairyland's forlorn, then the soothing sound of the song of the nightingale might have soothed her love laden soul and heart. So, and it was situated by the side of the sea which was turbulent, which was hazardous and disturbed, and uh, there were the magic casement which opened on the foam of the perilous sea. That is, if the magic casement of the room where the lady is captivated, if it is opened, then the foam of the dangerous sea could be seen. So we see that in this stanza, the poet actually wants to explore the idea of the permanence of the bird's song, and for this reason he relates the story of Ruth, the story of Ruth that is found in the Old Testament of Bible. Actually, the poet wanted to mean that the bird, nightingale, though it will die today or tomorrow, another of its kind will continue the song, and it will please generation after generations as it is pleasing me right now in this very night. So the nightingale or its kind will continue singing permanently. We shall continue the poem in the next video. Thank you.